It's Wednesday, January 5. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The National Identification System, NIDS, will be fully operational this year. That from Prime Minister Andrew Holness. On Tuesday, he toured the NIDS Card Center at the Post and Telecommunication Department on South Camp Road in Kingston.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says there is a digital revolution taking place globally, and if nothing is done, Jamaica could be left behind. He says in embracing the new digital age, each Jamaican must have an established identity, and that's where the NIDS come in.
And what we are doing here in this investment in the law, in the system, and in the machines to do it, is to ensure that every Jamaican can be included and participate in the digital society.
Mr. Holness notes the increased use of online services by banks and government agencies which require identification.
When government gives services, we need to be able to identify the beneficiary, not to deprive anyone who should get a benefit, but to be able to account to you, the citizens, as to how your funds are spent. So there is even now a greater need to be able to identify who benefits when public resources are spent. But more than that, we need to be able to identify our citizens so we can properly plan.
The Prime Minister says with the establishment of NIDS, every Jamaican will be accounted for and properly served.
People are not reluctant to get IDs, you know. But the problem is, you have a voter ID, you have your passport, you have to get driver's license, TRN, and it is one confusion sometimes. People are now trying to get their remittances from overseas. That has nothing to do with government. People are getting remittances from overseas, but the remittance companies require identification.
When established, NIDS will provide a comprehensive and secure structure to enable the capture and storage of personal identity information for citizens and persons ordinarily resident in Jamaica. The NIDS will become the primary source of identity assurance and verification with the issuance of a unique lifelong national identification number to every person.
Education, Youth and Information Minister Favour Williams says the government will continue to facilitate the resumption of face-to-face classes with the support of the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
She addressed the matter at a post-cabinet press brief on Wednesday.
So far, the majority of schools that are back in the face-to-face environment have reported no issues. There are some schools that reported to us, and those were 23 schools reported that students or teachers would have called in to say that they have flu-like symptoms.
Most schools have been using a blended approach, including online classes, audio-visual classes, and learning kits. Transport Minister Robert Montague says the school train service is to be officially launched next Monday to coincide with the reopening of participating high schools, which are part of the pilot program. The train will transport students from Old Harbour and Linstead to Spanish Town. The students will then be picked up by JUTC buses, which will take them to the various schools in Spanish Town. The ministry says the reverse will take place in the afternoon. Jamaica Constabulary Force is appealing to motorists to exercise care when traversing the roadways. 482 road fatalities were recorded last year, the highest number since 2004. Assistant Commissioner of Police, ACP Gary Mackenzie, says some crashes occur at what he describes as the perennial crash hotspots along the roadways, and he's cautioning motorists to be extra vigilant.
When we look, for example, at the toll highway between Caymanas and the Vineyards, that is an area of concern. The Nelson Mandela Highway, right? The Norman the Michael Manley Boulevard that is out in East Kingston, those are areas in the corporate area that are of concern. If we look at St. Catherine, Old Harbour Road, Clarendon, Bustamante Highway, St. Anne, the Landover Main Road, St. James, the Rosal Main Road, those areas are areas of concern, and we have heightened our presence. However, we continue to appeal to drivers to slow down.
ACP Mackenzie says his team has heightened its presence in those areas as a matter of priority.
Meaning those areas where we have had more than 2 fatal crashes and fatalities. And so we have mapped that, and we are occupying those areas as a matter of priority. We work along with our stakeholders, the National Road Safety Council, and we partner with them in terms of educating our motorists. I must also mention that the informatics department at the University of West Indies also contribute to our planning process. And so the data that they provide, or the analysis, it helps us to better deploy and implement those strategies.
It's a new year, but the same challenges remain. One such challenge is that of garbage collection. In March of 2021, the National Solid Waste Management Authority, the NSWMA, launched a mobile app that citizens can use to report uncollected waste. Marlon Samuels has that story.
Approximately 1 kilogram of waste is produced per person per day in Jamaica. This amount is expected to increase by an average of 6% per year. A lot of the garbage ends up in gullies. At times, they are left lining the streets. Poor solid waste management practices are one of the most challenging environmental issues in Jamaica. To properly address the issue of Jamaica's solid waste collection services requires the use of technology. The National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, has come up with an innovative tool to manage Jamaica's waste collection services. They have created a mobile application to report instances of littering, illegal dumping, uncollected garbage, while allowing the user to access waste management information at their fingertips. The custom-branded mobile app is easy to use and offers helpful information to users. The app also allows Jamaicans to communicate directly with them about garbage disposal and collection. Users can download the app by visiting the iOS or Android Play stores and type NSWMA. Users can upload images of garbage in a public space, littering and illegal dumping. Once the image is uploaded, the app sends a geotag report to the NSWMA. The user will receive a reference number and is able to follow the progress of the case within the app. The app will go a long way in managing solid waste collection. Despite the app, some believe more must be done. They point to the need for more capital resources, public education, and enforcement of solid waste management legislation. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Marlon Samuels.
Here's a good question to consider at the start of the new year, and that is, how much should we save? The Bank of Jamaica provides some answers in its Empowering You series. We get this plus our daily market updates in this business report with Gabriel Thompson.
In foreign exchange trading for Tuesday, January 4, the US dollar sold for an average $154.58. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $121.64. The pound sterling traded for $209.41, and the euro sold for an average $179.55. In Monday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index declined by 3,967 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 102 stocks, of which 44 advanced, 46 declined, and 12 traded firm. The Junior Market Index declined by 33 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Blue Power Group Limited, Cargo Handlers Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Stocks declined for 1834 Investments Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and CAC 2000 9.5% preference shares. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with over 2.3 million units, followed by Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with over 2 million units, and Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with over 1.5 million units. In market data for oil, prices slipped below $80 a barrel on Wednesday after OPEC Plus producers stuck to an agreed output target rise for February, and investors assessed the impact of a spike in COVID-19 cases caused by the Omicron variant. Brent crude futures were down 18 cents or 0.23% to $79.82 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures declined 23 cents or 0.3% to $76.76 a barrel. OPEC Plus producers, which include members of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, along with Russia and others, on Tuesday agreed to add another 400,000 barrels per day of supply in February, as they have done each month since August. Just before we go, here's a timely video for you as you enter a new year. It's from the Bank of Jamaica BOJ Empowering You video series. In this clip, the bank wants you to examine how much you should save.
You alright, honey?
Huh?
How come you're not watching football this morning?
I have a lot on my mind.
I upset you when I suggest that you save rather than buy a new car?
I see the promotion and salary increase as a solution to many of our problems. When is the last time me and you go to the North Coast? We deserve a nice holiday.
And you deserve a new car.
That too. We have to live the good life now. It's now the money I come. But if you have a peaceful life, I will go along with your program.
It's the best for all of we.
So, how much you think we should I save every month? For me, I'm going to put all of my pay in here on every month.
David, you need to create a budget that can track all the income and expenses. Then you can decide how much you want to save. It depends on the goals that you set.
I hope I can put the car in that budget.
Jeez.
And with that, we close this Wednesday edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
In today's Living Healthy, Dr. Heather Lawson-Myers looks at something so common we take it for granted, and that's breathing. But how do we identify breathing challenges? Find out how in today's episode.
I'm here in the Blue Mountains of Jamaica. The air is fresh and clean, and it just allows us to breathe. The air is so fresh and clean up here in the Blue Mountains. And you know, breathing is something that we do without even thinking about it. But there are actually ways that you can breathe that are more effective than others. The most effective way to breathe is through your nose. 18% more oxygen goes into your body when you breathe in through your nose. Also, your nose has natural filters, so the air going in is a lot cleaner. But some of us can't breathe through our noses. Maybe there are allergy issues, or maybe there's a child who has large tonsils and adenoids, and the airway space is limited. So the body does what it does best. It finds another way to cope. And that second option is often mouth breathing. Breathing through your mouth can affect many things. In an ideal situation, your tongue should be in the roof of your mouth, creating gentle but steady pressure on your upper jaw. At the same time, your heavy cheek muscles are providing pressure on that upper jaw as well. So the tongue and the cheek muscles together balance to help your upper jaw form evenly and nicely. If you are mouth breathing though, your tongue has to fall to the floor of your mouth. And so the upper jaw doesn't have that inner muscle support, and often it changes the shape of that upper jaw from a nice round shape to almost a triangular shape, and the face looks longer, the eyes droop, the tongue stays in the floor of the mouth, and your head actually tilts forward. As your head tilts forward, guess what? It changes your body posture. So mouth breathing affects a myriad of things that you would not imagine. First of all, you don't get as much air. The air isn't as clean. Your mouth is more susceptible to cavities because the saliva that naturally flushes dries out more readily when your mouth is open. So you can get gum disease, you can get tooth decay. Also, if you are mouth breathing because there's an inadequate airway space, you may not be resting well at night. Inadequate sleep leads to slow thought processes. It also leads to children not coping as well in school sometimes, or adults not being able to focus at work. Postural issues result from mouth breathing. So a quick check with a pediatric physician or an ENT coupled with your dentist can create options that can eliminate mouth breathing. And the earlier you eliminate it, the better it is. Breathing, something we don't even think about, but the way we breathe can truly affect all of our lifestyle and our health as well. Listen, catch you next time. Facebook, YouTube, and our LFD website. See you next time on HD's Jazz.
In regional news, we begin in the Bahamas. Amid an increasing number of hospitalizations and confirmed COVID cases daily, Health Minister Dr. Michael Darville says the government is doing all it can. He tells reporters while the government has its role to play, Bahamians must also do their part. Kyle Walkian reports.
When we caught up with the health minister outside Cabinet to ask what the Davis administration was prepared to do amid this rise in hospitalizations, he said, quite frankly, the Davis administration is doing all it can in the middle of this fourth wave of cases.
Well, the government is doing all that we can do with this situation.
With 55 COVID-positive people in Princess Margaret Hospital alone, the past week has seen a drastic increase in hospitalizations. During the Christmas holiday weekend, it was in the teens. And now, with hundreds of cases being confirmed daily, Darville said the situation is challenging.
It is a challenge, we will definitely be untrue to say it's not a challenge. And what we're experiencing, every country around the globe is experiencing these amount of cases because the virus is so transmissible and very infectious. And as a result of public gatherings in private places, everyone is susceptible.
Darbolt said after a number of large gatherings over the holiday weekend, numbers are much higher, creating this concern for health officials.
What is concerning us is the percentage of testing is proving to be higher than we anticipate, which is an indication that the disease burden is relatively high in the country. And we are now preparing ourselves to ensure that we have adequate healthcare protocols in place so that if there is a surge that possibly could take place with hospital admissions, we are in a better position to deal with it.
Between Thursday and Sunday, 1,535 cases were confirmed. According to Darbolt, the free testing pilot program for New Providence began Tuesday morning at vaccination sites. In addition, government has begun giving out free masks. But with over 100 healthcare workers on New Providence in isolation or quarantine and over 30 on Grand Bahama, there is also a manpower concern in the public healthcare system.
At our legacy unit, we have admissions and we're opening up more of the tents. But I must admit that due to the exposure of some of our staff members, some of the essential services had to be cut back. And even though we have sufficient bed space, we are now restructuring to ensure that we find a staff where individuals who will be admitted will be able to go in those particular wards.
Darbolt said an additional 50 nurses are being brought into the country in addition to physicians being brought on. But while government does its part, the health minister says the Bahamian public must understand its role.
It's very important that the Bahamian people realize that they have a part to play. We must execute the proper protocols and ensure that we wear our masks when we're in public places and we are able to go from place to place, minimizing our contact with individuals.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
In Barbados, Prime Minister Mia Mottley says her government will give a subsidy of $3,000 to every person under 35 who are seeking to become first-time homeowners to help towards legal fees.
Speaking during the launch of the BLP's campaign last evening, Motley says this will be a key policy if re-elected on January 19.
The first limitation, especially for young first-time homeowners, is if they got enough money to pay the legal fees for the documents when they're buying a property. Not true? And therefore, this government will give a subsidy of $3,000 to every person under the age of 35 buying a first-time house in this country for the first time to help towards legal fees. Because we need to encourage the housing revolution that will come from this year, 2022.
The trade union movement is calling on workers to show up to their jobs come mid-January, despite the government's insistence that public sector workers should be vaccinated against COVID-19.
The public sector vaccination policy was announced by the Prime Minister in December. He said if workers fail to comply, they will be furloughed. While speaking to the media outside the Attorney General's office, President of JTUM, Ansel Roger, reiterated the union's call for more consultation on the matter.
No worker is obligated to give any response with regard to his or her vaccination status. You are not required to do that within your terms and conditions of employment, within your various collective agreements. And therefore, stand your ground that that is your personal record and do not assist them to fire you or to get rid of you from the job.
Mr. Roger added that the call by the unions for the removal of the deadline for the policy has not been heeded.
That the Attorney General has not responded to us, responded to our letter, responded to the last meeting that we had. Instead, he's out in the press and so on. And that instead of responding to us, he is misrepresenting and has misrepresented our views and our articulation. And that he is leading the charge in the government to deconstruct the very industrial court where all of these matters will be headed.
In sports, we're on the track with athletics. We will look at two of the big ticket events that will be on the athletics agenda in the upcoming months. After a 2-year hiatus, the Carifta Games are scheduled for Kingston, Jamaica from April 16 to April 18. For the English-speaking Caribbean nations and Canada, the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, England will be held between August 2 and 7 and will also be a major feature. We switch over to Guyana as the racket sport, badminton, has commenced its academy program that is being facilitated through the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. The historic academy officially served off on Monday afternoon at the Cliff Anderson Sports Hall with Sport Minister Charles Ramson Jr. We get more in this report from Newsroom Guyana.
So what you will see moving forward is that there will be times dedicated for badminton, for the Sports Academy, every single day. Every single day, 6 days a week, you will be able to come and play and train under a program that will help you to advance your sports talent all the way up to the level that you want it to go. So that's what the Sports Academy is about. It's this vehicle to take you to becoming the best sports player for your respective sport that you can ever become. And we're doing this right now for 12 different sports.
That was Sport Minister Charles Ramson Jr. summarizing the goals and intents of the National Sport Academy program, which was unveiled in 2021 as part of a strategic move by the ministry to take those disciplines identified in this initial phase to another level through long-term investments by the government. Badminton has become the third discipline to start its academy program at the Cliff Anderson Sports Hall. The minister hailed the commencement of the academy as historic for the sport, one that will serve to transform badminton in the coming years.
The Sports Academy is something, it functions very similar like your school, where you start in primary school, you go into secondary school, and you go into tertiary education. Similarly, the Sports Academy is built on a nursery. The second pillar is tournaments, and then the third is your elite academy. Now, we wanted to start today for badminton because we know that one of your elite players, he's leaving, I think, tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. And what we've been working on over the last few days is finalizing your training manual, which he's been able to set. That's going to guide your coaches. So you'll have, from the personnel standpoint, the ministry is going to be providing the payment for your coach, and then you're also going to have one of the sports organizers that's employed at the ministry, at the National Sports Commission, sorry. They're also going to be dedicated towards assisting you.
The minister added that there will be rigid monitoring by the ministry to ensure compliance to what is outlined in the academy program, as well as to get a gauge of what may be required to allow for further expansion going forward. Director of Sport Steve Ninval, in endorsing what the minister said, added that the start of the academy is the realization of words being put into action.
The nursery is one of the most important components of sport disciplines. This is where we can mold and guide and nurture you. So it's a very important aspect. The National Sports Commission, and by extension the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, has stood true to their word that this will not be a talk shop. This will be something that we will see to the end. And I want to thank the Honorable Minister for this initiative that is going to see our national grid being exposed to much more young, developed and talented sportsmen and women.
Vice President of the Guyana Badminton Association, Ayana Watson, said the association is grateful to the ministry for seeing the need to introduce such an initiative.
It is something that, we've been looking forward to. We like discipline, we are a disciplined sport. We like structure, and we're looking forward to what this can do for our players, for players of the entire Guyana, as well what it can do to enhance the confidence of our students.
The academy program got underway in mid-December with focus on squash and volleyball. The academy will initially focus on the 12 core sport, namely cricket, football, athletics, basketball, table tennis, swimming, hockey, squash, rugby, volleyball, tennis, and badminton. Reporting for Newsroom, I'm Avinash Ramsan.
And with that, we call end of play for today's news. Join us tomorrow for more news and sport right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.